Hi guys! Good to be with you again virtually and in spirit. I hope you guys have had a good week with your families and aren't going too stir crazy. If you all remember, last time we left off, we left with Noah safely being delivered from the flood onto dry land by God's grace. Just a reminder, Panda is standing in for God in these illustrations, and the panda-like ball is standing in for the world, made in God's image, but fallen from perfect communion with Him onto a lower state where things are twisted on earth. Now, last week we got a little bit into God's promise with Noah that he won't flood the earth again, but we didn't get to dive too deeply into it. So this week we're going to start actually by pausing the video. I'm going to let you guys read Genesis 9, 8 through 17. And after you get a chance to do that, you can come on back. Okay, so does God's covenant with Noah bless just Noah, or does it bless other people and things? What are some other things that benefit from God's covenant with Noah? So, not just Noah, but his family and his family to come for generations after him, years and years and years down the road. Also all the animals and the plants and the earth itself, because man is meant to take good care of the earth and to till it and to contain it and spread God's good order to that. Now, next question. What does God give as the token or sign of his covenant with man? That's right, a rainbow. So, one of my best friends in high school made this for me. And I don't know if you can read it because it's in kind of fancy handwriting, but it says, "This is the token of the covenant." And she put together a bunch of the ribbons that we used to wear in our hair for cross-country races, and she made a rainbow out of it. And that was because I actually had some pretty neat experiences where God showed me and reminded me of his faithfulness and promises to me through showing me beautiful rainbows in the sky at some hard times in my life. And here's another picture of a rainbow that another one of my good friends drew for me. So, as you can see, the rainbow, even though it was given as a promise and reassurance to Noah thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, people like me and you still get to benefit from seeing rainbows in the sky and being reminded of God's faithfulness. So when God gives a promise to his people and he makes a covenant, he not only gives his word, but he gives us visual and tangible signs, things that we can hang on to and see, that help remind us that he will remain faithful to us. And we read in 2 Timothy 2:13 that even if we are faithless, he remains faithful, for he cannot deny himself. And we can remember that even though we are down here, no matter how much we get twisted around and confused and stray from God, God remains the same. His faithfulness does not change. But we read very shortly that it doesn't take long for man to be unfaithful, unfortunately. So in the next few verses, chapter 9, verses 20 through 24, we'll read about that. So you guys can pause again and take a couple minutes to read these next 4 verses. Okay, so we see here that we're already in a mess with Noah and his sons. And in this scene, we have echoes of what happened in the original fall, because we see nakedness and shame and families turning against each other. So we're reminded that even though Noah was used as a vessel to help keep the world afloat, he was not a perfect person. And his problems were still passed on to his sons as well. So we see that the flood may have given a cleansing through water, but it didn't give the final solution. So as I've been going with a little ditty each week to help us see the main point, this week's is: the problem of sin runs deep in the skin. But even through sin, God gives hope again and again. So we're reminded that the story of humanity on the world is one that's a mixing of blessing and curses. The family tree, this crazy conglomerate, isn't something that's nice and neat and pretty, but through that, even through the sin, God keeps giving hope to his people. So we're going to read about that a little bit more. In chapters 10 and 11, we get another close-up of the family tree, or genealogy. So we see another listing of names, and right in the middle of these listings is the story of the Tower of Babel. So again, you guys get to pause for, I think, the last time to read a little bit about this story. You can read chapters 11, verses 1 through 4. Okay, so here we see a pattern continued that started a while ago. When God pours out his blessing, humans in their twisted state, instead of lifting that blessing back up to praise God, they keep it inside and turn it to pride, being very proud of their own strength and wanting to keep that for themselves. So they get the idea that with all their strength, they can build their way up to heaven by making a giant tower. I bet you can guess this isn't going to turn out so well. So you can read the next few verses, chapter 11, verses 5 through 9, to see how God responds to this and what exactly comes of this. Okay, so clearly it doesn't work, and we see that humans, no matter how hard they spin their wheels, they cannot work their way up to God. They can't work their way up to heaven. The only way that they can have heaven is if God, in his grace, stoops down and brings heaven to them, because he's in control. Trying to build our way up to heaven is about as effective as if we were to try and get Legos and build our way up to Mars. Legos aren't made for space travel. They aren't made for going millions of light years up to other planets. But if we were to try and take them to do that, we would work very hard, but we wouldn't make it very far. In the same way, human hands are not made to build our way up to heaven, because heaven isn't something that we can reach physically on our own. God has to bring it to us. So, even after this craziness that all the people on earth do, God does not destroy them. And why is that? Because of his covenant to Noah. He promised that he would not destroy them no matter what. So he continues to give life. And the genealogy, or the list of family names in chapter 11, focuses on life. If you can remember a while back in chapter 5, that genealogy actually focused on death and the curse, because you read over and over, and he died, and he died, and he died. It felt like a broken record. But this time we read, and such lived however many years, and such lived however many years. So this one is focusing on the life that God gives. However, at the end of chapter 11, all this life building up hits a wall, hits a dead end, as we read in verse 30 that Sarah was barren and without child. So the life that God was giving throughout mankind to spread throughout the world stops. If you can't have children, you can't continue life. However, we're going to find out that even through this, God chooses Sarah to continue on his promise. And we see that through earthly hopelessness, God helps to establish heavenly hope. So this week I'm going to leave on a little bit of a cliffhanger, but next week we'll get to dive into the story of Abram and Sarah, and how God works through dire earthly circumstances to cause them to look up and to gain an eternal hope. All right, good to be with you again, and just a reminder, don't feel afraid to send any prayer requests or any questions my way. Love you guys and look forward to seeing you again sometime in person. All right, bye-bye.